Welcome back to Chukitable Media. I was involved in a meeting on Zoom this afternoon, 17th of April 2025, and the Zoom meeting was organized by an investment bank called United Capital. The United Capital used to do this all the time, and I am a member of the house over there anyway. And the topic of this Zoom meeting or Zoom class or lecture today is planning your estate the right way with a trust. So the discussion is about trust, having a trustee, and that is what we are discussing. That is why I have participated also, so that my participation will actually bring me to give you a slice of what we discussed or what went on during this discussion. In this discussion, we have experts working with the bank, United Capital. And, one of them is Nnamdi Okereke, and the other one is Solomon Igberaise. And the moderator here is Florence Echendu. So Florence always do this. If you go on this channel, you will see part of the resources and the knowledge that I've brought to you way back. There, you can plan your money, you can plan your estate, you can plan with this United Capital. So at least, even if you don't want to do nothing with them, but at least you can also go out there and ask questions about what they are bringing to you. You remember what happened recently that we're talking, everybody's talking about UBS or Pixels, whereby people's money has been wiped away like that. And a lot of scam like that going around. But I want you to be very careful. Listen to this one again and understand why you have to have a kind of trust and you know where you put your money. So let's join them right here. I will be there too. We will have to watch together, but plan your estate. It's better to plan right now. It's better to plan. Anyway, they said even failure to plan is a plan as well. But try to plan. Let's listen and let's join them. So put your comment in the comment section. This is Chukitable Media. Always looking for our good.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar themed Planning Your Estate the Right Way with a Trust. Now, this webinar is brought to you by United Capital Trustees, a subsidiary of United Capital Group. My name is Florence Echendu, Communications Officer here at United Capital, and it is indeed an honor to serve as your moderator for today. Now, coming up today, we'll have the pleasure of listening to industry experts who are going to be shedding the light on our topic for today, which is planning your estate the right way with a trust. They will demystify the entire concept of trust. They will also be speaking to common misconceptions, reasons why we should actually take advantage of trust in planning for our legacies, right? So right now here at United Capital, I enjoin you to sit back, relax, grab your notepads, grab your pens. If you have questions, you can always drop them in the comment section. Now, just before we begin, we have a few housekeeping guidelines. This session is in listen-only mode, and if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A segment later on in the session where we can address all of the questions that you might have. Now, for those of us that are joining us on Zoom, please drop your questions in the chat box located at the bottom of your screen. And for those of us that are joining via YouTube, please drop your questions in the comment section. Now, also note that this session is being recorded, and we will definitely be sharing the recording to you after the webinar. All right, right now, I would like to know where we are joining us from. Like we all know, this webinar is the world is a global village, and this webinar is basically designed for people of all income classes. So we would like to know where you're joining us from. If you're joining us from Lagos, please drop the comments in the comment section. If you're joining us from Lagos, from Abuja, joining us from Port Harcourt, if you're joining us from Anambra State, Enugu, Ogun State, Oyo, South Africa, wherever it is you're joining us from around the world, we would like to know where you're joining us from. So please keep the comments coming in the comment section. Thank you very much. Just so we stay on track with our timelines for today, I would like to introduce our esteemed speakers for today. First of all, we have Nnamdi Okeke. Nnamdi is a team lead private trust here at United Capital Trustees. Nnamdi is an expert in private and corporate trusteeship, family office management, dispute resolution, and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nnamdi.
Thank you very much, Florence. Thank you for having me, and good morning to our esteemed attendees.
All right, thank you so much, Namdi. Also, we have Solomon Igberese. Solomon is team lead corporate trust here at United Capital Trustees. Now, Solomon is an experienced legal officer who specializes with trust administration, trust management, corporate governance, and legal advisory. Thank you so much for joining us, Solomon.
Yes, thank you very much, Florence. Thank you. It's good to be here and of course to speak to listeners. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you very much. So let's go back to our topic, right? Our topic today says planning your estate the right way with a trust. But first things first, whenever people hear the word estate planning, what comes to mind or what they assume is that it's for either the people who are really wealthy or for older people. But in today's Nigeria, can you explain to our audience what estate planning means and why it is something that everyone with assets, either big or small, irrespective of your income class, should start thinking about early? Over to you, Solomon.
Thank you very much, Florence. Again, the question is, what is estate planning? I think to break that, it's just the two, operational words: estate and plan. Estate is basically all your affairs, everything you own, of course, in your lifetime, from big to small, irrespective of whatever it is, anything of value certainly constitutes your estate. Then plan, plan in simple definition, it was making arrangements for whatever it is. Because those two together is simply planning how your affairs, of course, will be managed or administered. Because the saying goes, failing to plan is, of course, planning to fail. We have heard, so many stories of, of course, people leaving their estate to chance, and of course, the disputes that, of course, emanate from the maladministration, of course, all their own. Of course, there's this also the local saying that so that your next of kin does not use your all you have labored for, to do the remake. So that's exactly why this is. If you don't want, next of kin who have no sense of value that you have put together to use your money or to squander your money, you will put during your lifetime, set how, of course, your assets, will be used, particularly for the beneficiaries, you have your children, your wife, your spouse, your parents, your siblings, it deliberate, attention to how this, all your assets is, is administered, in the event of your demise.
All right, thank you very much, Solomon, for introducing trust to us. I mean, like you mentioned, it's actually the entire process of you planning for how your estate would be after you are no longer here on earth. I mean, like you also mentioned, next of kin doesn't know how much effort you have put into building your wealth, right? Before they go and use your wealth to go and start doing during me, meanwhile you are putting a lot of effort. So yes, estate planning also helps you with, trying to align how your legacy will be taken care of when you're no longer here. But even if, yes, there's this common notion here in Nigeria that nobody wants to die. Like when you hear death, I beg, I don't want to hear about that. Nobody wants to die, but I mean, it's something that would come eventually at some point in time in our lives. And whenever we talk about this in the concept here in Nigeria, people understand the concept of writing a will. I mean, a will is very common, right? But when people talk here, trust still feels a bit abstract. So I'll be channeling this question now to Namdi. And Namdi, can you just tell us what exactly a trust does, especially in the Nigerian context, and why trust makes such an effective estate planning solution? Over to you, Namdi.
Okay, thank you very much, Florence. Interestingly, everyone trusts somebody. I mean, growing up, you had to trust your parents to do things for you. We trust our clergymen. We trust. It's normal for us to trust. But as a part or as an ingredient in your wealth management, we have what we call the private trust, which we can describe as a contract, a private contract between an asset owner. Everyone owns one thing or the other, who transfers the legal title to those assets, that's asset that constitute your estate, to a trustee, an expert, a third party who has the capacity to manage and preserve these assets for their beneficiaries. Yes, we have conventional means of estate planning, maybe a will, and somebody will be asking what's the difference. given the nature of our country at this point in time, it's apt that we embrace using trust to plan one's estate because of the uniqueness it has from the traditional instruments of doing so with a will. A trust takes effect during one's lifetime. So you plan your estate using a trust, you set up a trust, it takes effect immediately. It gives you the opportunity to, test some of the objectives you have for your asset, to see which one works well. And because it's flexible, if it's not working, you do some changes. When you plan your estate using a trust, you would automatically avoid probate, whether it's for letter of administration, whether it's when you have a will. And when you avoid probate, it means your wishes will instantaneously be implemented. You won't have to wait through the bureaucracies of getting through the application process, getting publication, and all those things that consume time. And what the trust really does for you if you avoid probate is that the beneficiary is expeditedly helped. They don't have to wait to access whatever you've made available for them. But more importantly, it's not even only when the person is not in the picture that a trust comes in handy. The trust is useful even when they are alive. It's useful for you to acquire your asset. It's useful for you to plan confidentially how that asset will be treated. It's useful for you to also cater for, minors, for disabled persons, or even charities. Another thing I want to add is that the intention of the settlor in making out a trust is covered via a trust deed, and it's always going to be implemented. And then the trust minimizes tax exposure. The income that comes into your trust, because it's a pass-through. A pass-through is more like something somebody holds for you for a period of time before the ultimate beneficiary then takes it. So throughout the period of the trust, all the assets inside the trust is covered, perhaps until the beneficiary eventually gets this. That's when we now start talking of what tax regime should apply to it. But importantly, I want to look at the appetite of Nigerians who are catching up with the global trend. Trust is very necessary now in doing business, in planning one's estates, in making sure there is a transfer from one generation to the other. So if you are attending this webinar, you are listening to this, I congratulate you, because it's an opportunity to embrace this move that is right in time. Thank you, Florence.
Thank you very much, Namdi. Well, viewers, you have heard it, right? You don't have to wait until trust can actually take effect while you are still alive. I mean, there are different kinds of trust depending on the one you opt for, but you get to know that trust can actually work while you are still living. Now that Namdi has defined what trust entails, we would like to talk about the different kinds of trust services that are here at United Capital. So, Namdi, can you just talk to us about the different types of trusts that we offer here at United Capital Trust? And can you explain as well what makes each of them unique? Over to you.
Yes, at United Capital, it's important for me to explain that we structure your trust to mirror your objectives. We don't just, yes, there are different structures, but we interact with you. We understand your needs, your beneficiaries, and the asset you are planning around. This would inform us recommending a trust structure to you. And for trust structures, there are various trust structures. There's what we call the living trust. That is the trust you set up during your lifetime. It enables you to appoint a neutral entity like United Capital to manage and preserve your assets and to ensure that from generation to generation, your wishes are kept. To have the education trust, strictly speaking to education objectives. So if you are one that you want to ensure that your legacy for your beneficiaries is education, we can help you set up an education trust that would not honor any other thing but for the educational needs of your beneficiaries. This would also help to, cater to where people are worried. This thing now, would my children still go to school and all that? The presence of education trust, even in your absence, would be a motivation to them and help them to realize their dreams through education. We also have something we have designed deliberately for our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, which is a diasporan trust. It's common knowledge that many of us overseas work so hard under very perilous weather to our relatives to help us with projects. And then 20 years after, we'll come back and the project, if you permit me to be a little informal, didn't they? Things like that. And it's a heartbreak scenario. But we are saying that we can help you as a professional entity that has not gone anywhere for the past 60 years to put those funds to the use, to the project that you have in mind for them, such that while you are in the diaspora, you set up a trust here that would enable us to realize your objectives. Also, a charitable trust. Every one of us have a part of us that want to give back to the society, to give back to people. A charitable trust helps you to do that, whether in form of an endowment structure, whatever nature of the charity is. We put together this trust, we envisage who the beneficiaries will be, and while you are alive, you can see those things come to fruition. When you are not more in the picture, that charity will still be on. There are so many around today. But why it's so beautiful that you do it with an entity like United Capital is the longevity of that intention. It continues. It does not end. And also, we get this feedback from time to time. Some people say, oh, they might not be able to afford a comprehensive trust structure. Congratulations, we've been able to create something we call a private investment trust that enables you to start small, that enables you to put together your funds with little documentation here and there, but having a trust element. You just come in and we'll work with you until this asset grows. To a certain point, of course, we'll advise you to go comprehensive. And if by virtue of your work or exposure, you are it's necessary for you to ensure that there is no conflict of interest between the work you do, your office you occupy, and your personal assets. We also have the blind trust structure that works for you. And finally, it's normal sometimes for us to consider or recommend a hybrid structure. Hybrid structure means because of the peculiarity of an individual need, we adopt more than one trust structures. And in some cases, we go far beyond these particular ones I've listed. But I will stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, a lot of us has probably heard of scenarios whereby a couple of people have probably traveled outside of Nigeria for several years, and you're probably sending money home to somebody, maybe one uncle, one brother somewhere, and then they keep sending you pictures and videos or whatever it is. They tell you they're building on your behalf, and then by the time you come back home, you see that even ordinary plots of land you don't even have to your name. So all of these things can be avoided with a trust. I mean, we have different packages, different trust services designed for several people. Even the education trust, I know someone who is currently in 300 level studying in Canada. And the reason she's studying in Canada right now is because over 20 years ago, her father started out an education trust on her behalf. And she's currently schooling in Canada right now simply because the funds that have been processed over time, over the past over 20 years, is what's currently being used to pay her fees in Canada. So of course, there are different kinds of trust, irrespective of whatever it is you are in your life at this point in time, there is a specific trust that is designed for you. Yes, we have spoken about wills. We've spoken about trusts, and all of these are actually tools for estate planning, which is speaking your estate the right way using a trust. But then again, we know wills are very common. We have spoken about trust today, and these tools actually serve different purposes, right? But usually when you combine both of them, it can actually form the backbone and foundation for a solid estate plan. So Solomon, can you help us paint a brief picture of what a comprehensive estate plan might look like?
Okay. So a comprehensive estate plan, even like the foundation you laid, using a will and a trust. So a will can also, both will and trust are again tools for estate plan, but a trust can be created, out of a will, and that happens where a testator, that's the person creating the will, put all the assets, because list all the assets in the will, and create a trust therefrom, thereby saying that this is all my assets. I'm creating a trust, putting a trustee in charge of those assets to administer it for this purpose. Yes, typically it varies from, of course, the circumstance of the case. Like Namdi mentioned earlier, so we take instructions from any client to look at what best suits, of course, their purpose. So it's a bespoke kind of arrangement that is hard for everybody, of course, interested. So yes, the trust can stand alone. Again, depending on the nature of the asset that you have, depending on the bequest that you are anticipating, depending on how you want, of course, all those assets administered. Of course, with a will as a foundation, that means you have to still list them, because the lodgement of that will in the probate registry, the process of administrating will now require, of course, getting the certification, which we call probate from the probate judge, and again, therefrom it empowers the trustees to act, leveraging on, of course, the certification of the probate judge. Yes, so those tools can be used jointly for your estate plan. Again, that makes it a bit more very rock solid, without any holes. Or how I wish, of course, the late FRA Williams has used this opportunity. I'm sure we will not have the humongous lawsuit that has emanated from his estate. So yes, these are it's always advisable to speak with professionals that can advise you on the best way forward. Now, the reason why the trust is also required, because in a will, is because you want a professional handling your estate. You don't want to rely on Baba Shade, my next door neighbor, or my brother, I trust him. The example that came to mind is, who says the person that you had thought would manage your estate will not deceive you? Who says nobody can say? And again, because a trustee company like an capital trustee is a self-regulated entity, it has what we call perpetual succession, which means that a change of management today does not stop the mandate that the company has to administer your estate. And of course, these are professionals who are capable of administering your estate properly. Again, just recently we heard the news of CBEX, and of course, where people thinking that they can't manage this because they hear that they are doing amazing. They are all begging to God now. There's nothing SEC can do. Again, these are because people don't dig really deep, or they don't have enough financial understanding to know the outlet for their fund, investment outlet for their fund. This is where a trustee, again, who has very robust technical team that can give you best outlet for your asset, that can give you best returns on your asset. So yes, using those two together, that certainly can give you ease of mind, as you try to get more funds, as you try to acquire more assets in your estate.
All right, thank you, Solomon. Viewers, you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Engaging or making use of a trust to plan your estate would actually give you peace of mind. If it doesn't give you any other thing, one thing is certain. I mean, United Capital Trustees has been in the system for over 60 years. So of course, we are coming with that wealth of experience to manage your estate on your behalf while you are living and even when you are no longer on earth. Another thing we'd like to talk about, speaking about this, we'd like to talk about intergenerational wealth. Now, I know a lot of us probably have friends that we always call trust fund babies or trust fund kids. These are people who are living their best lives, and we talk about the fact that they are living off maybe their parents' or grandparents' wealth. All of these things are made possible because this particular parent or grandparent must have put a proper estate plan in place to ensure that every single person in my generation is properly well taken care of. So it's one thing to pass money down from one generation to another. But it's another thing to pass it down well. I mean, we've had cases of people who maybe their grandfather or their grandmother was a very rich person, had lots of businesses, but by the time it came down to the first, second, or third generation, you see that these monies have disappeared. And you're wondering what happened. Your ancestor used to have a lot of money. So why are you struggling and all of that? So it's one thing to pass money, it's another thing to actually pass it down well. So Nnamdi, how can you explain to us how trusts actually supports long-term wealth preservation beyond just sharing assets from one person to another?
Okay, Florence, I will start by saying that one of the surest way to ensure long-term wealth preservation is using a trust. It's simply putting it that way. And the next thing I want to say to you is that what are the alternatives? In estate planning, you have a good plan, you have a bad plan. Not planning at all is also a plan, which is a very bad plan. So the trust fund babies you mentioned are beneficiaries of well-planned estates,
Yes.
preferably planned using a trust. And how do you plan an estate well using a trust? You set up the trust early. You set up the trust. Many of us think it's only when you have billions that then you need to plan your estate as early as possible. I have clients recently who have been profiling, setting up their trust in their 30s. And one thing I have in common, or one thing I've noticed in common with them, is that they don't even have so much, but because of the knowledge that they've come in contact with, they are setting up their trust early. They are acquiring assets into the trust the right way. Part of what prevents long-term wealth preservation is wrong means of acquiring assets. You are buying wrongly, sometimes in your personal name. You are not considering the structure of your family and the structure of your beneficiaries. Those things will not help long-term plans to preserve your wealth. So how does trust help? Trust enables you to acquire wealth properly using the right title. We look at your objective for that particular property. What do you want to achieve with it? Do you want to sell it in the short run? Do you want to pass it down to your future generation? Do you want to use it as a monument, a legacy preservation monument? These are things we ask you that makes us advise you from early stage on how to acquire this asset. Do you even invest more in cash? Do you want to invest more in real estate? These are deliberate things. So to make a solid estate plan that would ensure intergenerational wealth transfer, you start early. You be deliberate about it. And the trust helps protect and preserve against mismanagement by beneficiaries or even the trustee, because the trust is governed by a trust deed that stipulates the terms of what to do and what not to do. So the trustee, who has what we call in law a fiduciary obligation, but in common man terms, a duty of care, a very high standard of care to protect the asset, would always work to ensure that he meets that objectives. Because sometimes in administering a trust, the fear of sanction from failing to do what he ought to do keeps a trustee on his toes. And this is the kind of structure you want to set up. Again, for long-term plans, the flexibility of a trust, which you set up during your lifetime, helps you review things in hindsight. Oh, as at the time I started this thing, I had just 2 beneficiaries. Now I have 3. I have to make provision for them. A trust helps you do that. By a simple supplemental, you make modifications here and there. And I cannot overemphasize the role of the trust deed. That is the contract that future generations. I tell you, Florence, currently I am administering some trusts that were set up, before I was born. I can tell you that, but the deed is still very much my guide. That is your Bible in this kind of scenario. So put it down in writing, be specific with your instruction. I tell you that if you have a corporate trustee like United Capital, who prides in our ability to deliver excellent trusteeship, you can go to bed rest assured. You can have peace of mind. You can enjoy your life knowing that we are there for you every step of the way. So trust is the way to go. Long-term preservation, ensuring your objectives are met, even regardless of changing times. I want to give you this example. When COVID happened sometime in 2020, we reviewed some things with some of our clients. And basically, what we wanted to achieve was to ensure that they are very diversified, such that they won't be caught in one way. Because as a trustee, when the asset is available, that you continue to administer it. So there is so much more for you, but I think it's fair to encourage our listeners to take these steps from this moment. I said you have to start now. And the truth of the matter is you have to start yesterday. And if you didn't start yesterday, you forget about yesterday. Yesterday is gone. But today is another opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Namdi. There you have it, our viewers. The best time to start was yesterday, but the next best time you can start is now. And the beautiful thing about trust is the fact that irrespective of when you start, there's always something available for you. Namdi also mentioned that he's currently administering trust that was even created before he was even born. So this actually ensures that your children, your grandchildren, every single person that comes from your lineage is properly taken care of, even when you are no longer here. But this now brings me to another thing that's a common misconception, which is cost. Now, a lot of people always avoid trust because they assume that it is expensive or it's complicated. So I'll be directing this question to Solomon, and we would like to know, what exactly should people expect in terms of cost, the process, the time? What does it take to set up a trust with United Capital? Can you help us break down the setup and how flexible it is? Just help us simplify the journey for somebody who is thinking about kicking off their estate planning journey after this webinar. Over to you, Solomon.
All right. Thank you very much, Florence. I think there's a Russian proverb that says that everything is understood in comparison. So yes, of course, the comparison would be between either a will and a trust, or even not having none at all. What is the cost implication of those options? Not having at all is certainly a recipe for the wastage of all your assets completely, the erosion of all your assets completely. For a will, what is the cost? Of course, the another cost for a will is, again, the cost of course, preparation of the will, the cost of lodgement, the cost of course, proving the will, then the cost of even paying the estate tax, because that is payable to the state. Then for a cost for a trust, what is the cost? The cost is just as simple as the instructions to the trustees, again, to administer your estate. Now, there's really no flat cost, attendant to setting up the trust, because so many variables to be considered, which is why I mentioned earlier that the trust that we set up for clients they are all bespoke, and of course the variables to be considered are the value of the estate, the instructions, attendance in the trust, that is being set up. So all of those come together. But I can tell you categorically that the trust is a cheaper alternative all day, every day. Because again, it allows you for a real-time, view of how, of course, that estate is administered. And the lasting part is it does not erode the estate one way or the other. It does not erode the estate, one way or the other. Anything payable is payable on the returns, of course. The returns on the estate and on the assets of the estate are not, again, on what is to be passed over to beneficiary. So yes, it's always better to go with the trust. It's always cheaper. And yes, we are available to have conversations. We are able to, of course, get to a middle ground that allows you, plan your estate. It's too much to bear, when you see, people go through, headaches of, failing to plan their estate or failing to set administration for their estate. You heard one too many, even I'm sure a lot of the listeners, family, where you say, the person has died, then everybody is trying to, cut a bite, from the estate. So yes, not even having an estate plan is very expensive. Having a will, perhaps, maybe a bit less expensive, but having a trust should always be the goal. Having a trust should always be the goal.
All right, thank you so much, Namdi. Thank you so much, Solomon. We have heard so much. Now it's time for us to hear from our members of our audience. Now we have lots of questions that are lining up, and I can assure you that we'll take as many questions as we can take during this session. So going to the Q&A segment, we actually have a lot of people that are joining us from different locations. No, earlier we had asked people to drop their locations in the comment section. We can see people from Lagos, Abuja. I can see someone from Canada. Thank you so much for joining. Someone from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us. Another person from England. Thank you so much. Yes. So moving over to the Q&A section. The first question we have here is, Please, this Zoom, this question is from Chibuzo Amajoyi, and it says, is this Zoom meeting recorded? If yes, can it be accessed after the Zoom session? I would love to go over it again. Well, yes, Chibuzo, the good news is that the session is being recorded, and as soon as we wrap up, we will definitely receive an email with access to the recording, so you can play it over and over again, just in case you missed anything during the webinar. Now, this next question is from Dipo Olarewaju, and he says, what if a trust company goes bust? What happens to the trust that is set up for intergenerational beneficiaries? Namdi, would you like to take this?
Yes, I'm happy to take this. So, part of the beauty of this very design we call trust is that we envisage every scenario. In your trust deed, which I mentioned earlier, there is provision for alternate trustee. And it's important for me to state at this point that in setting up a trust, the assets of the settlor, that is the person setting up this trust, is always held different from the asset that belongs to the trustee. Yes, United Capital is a very big entity, but the assets of United Capital is not mingled with your assets that you're setting up the trust over. So in that same bucket, if the unimaginable happens that the trustee will not need to continue being in the picture, there is a provision in the trust deed that enables parties to agree on another trustee to also appoint to continue the implementation of the trust. So that's one of the things that makes us consider trust as the most flexible tool in planning one's estate. So you are able to transfer to another trustee. So, and we have many trustees in the industry. However, we pride ourselves in distinguishing ourselves with our achievements as the very best. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Namdi. This next question is from Fumi Awotunde, and it says, can I pool all my assets, such as landed properties, stocks, shares, bonds, home and abroad, into a trust? Solomon, would you like to take this?
Yes, thank you very much, Florence. Absolutely. So again, I mentioned earlier, an estate is, the totality of all you have. So yes, your shares, your landed property, your liquid funds, your stock, whatever it is, that you have. Even if you want to, your gold, your wristwatch, all that you have constitutes, the totality of the asset that you have that can come under the trust, and because upon which, the trustee can administer, again, in line with the instructions that we would have given at the time of setting up the trust.
All right, thank you very much.
Also mention even intellectual property, everything of value, in fact, everything of value, either of value today or of value tomorrow, everything of value, because can come under the trust.
All right, thank you very much, Solomon. For media, you have it. You can put every single thing you own into a trust. Everything of value that you own can be embedded into a trust. This other question is coming from Mojisola Jaigbele, and this one says, would you advise that a trust is created before buying the property so that the property can be in the name of the trust to avoid transfer fees?
Well, I keep going back to this statement that saying the time is now. It's really advisable. It's really advisable. One of the benefits of trust that I mentioned is that the trustee is able to guide you on the right way to structure your title. So it's very, very advisable that you set up your trust before acquiring assets. That's why I say start early. For most of us, as you get a very good job, or you graduate with prospects, start thinking of it. Set it up when you get a good job, regardless of the assets you have at that point in time, and you grow with you. Your trust should grow with you to enable you make changes. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Namdi. Thank you very much. This next question is from Kalim Tijani, and it says, what's the difference between a will, a trust, and a letter of administration? I know we touched on the difference between a will, a trust, and several other estate planning tools earlier in the session, but Kalim would like to know what the difference between a will, a trust, and a letter of administration is. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will take the will first. The will is actually a legal document that enables an individual to detail his instruction around what should happen to his assets when he is demised. That is a will. It takes effect after the lifetime of the person who makes it. A trust is a legal arrangement. It's a contract involving the trustee, involving the owner of the assets, involving the beneficiaries. Howbeit, the beneficiaries are just there to benefit of the management of the asset by the trustee. So it involves you transferring your assets. I gave an example of the fact that everybody has to trust somebody. You trust us because of our pedigree. You transfer your assets to us, even though you are not giving us beneficial ownership. In simple terms, you're not giving us the power to be the ones enjoying that asset that you are transferring to us. You are just saying trustees have legal title so that you would help me to plan and achieve my objectives. Then finally, a letter of administration. When a person dies without making a will, by the administration of estate laws, they need to take certain steps to be recognized by law as persons who should administer that person's estate. By they, I mean either the beneficiaries, either the spouse. Of course, the spouse will be one of, there are people that the law have listed who can have priority to step up to apply for the permission of the court. Because ordinarily in that case, if you don't make a will or plan your estate, you are giving the state the power to do so for you. So at that point, the states, if you are qualified, if they deem you to have the capacity, would give you a letter. That is what we call the LA, the letter of administration, that enables you to administer that person's estate. So I don't know if from my explanation, you would see that one gives you more control over what to do. And that's why we are focusing on trust.
All right, thank you very much, Namde. This next question is from Marcus Aja. And this question says, in terms of corporate trusteeship, will the business be run by the trust in case of death? This question is directed to Solomon as our team lead corporate trust here at United Capital Trustees. So the question Marcus is asking again, will his business be run by the trust in the case of death? Over to you now.
So it's still subject to what the instructions was at the time that the trust was set up. If the business constitutes the asset that you are putting into the trust, the trustee, of course, plays an advisory role, of course, on that on business. Largely, the formation of the board. So the trustee acts as the chairman of the business, because overseeing, because how the administration of the business, of course, is done. And again, the benefit of that is, of course, we have behind it 60 years of course, business administration, of course, and finance management. So that, again, forms the business how, of course, the trustees can, of course, still manage the business. But again, it all depends on the instructions, that we have. I think one of the clients that we have list about, I think, 3 of his children to be, of course, part of the governing board of the company, while the trustee sits was as the chairman of the board. And again, all of these are just safeguards put in place to avoid anybody watering down what the owner of the company or the owner of the asset has created or have put together over the years. So yes, administration of the company can form part of the responsibility of the trustee under where we have a corporate business as a part of the assets.
Thank you very much, Solomon. I can see a couple of us have our hands raised. This session is actually in listen-only mode, right? So if you have questions, please do well to drop them in the chat box located at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining us on YouTube or on Zoom, rather, and if you're joining us on YouTube, please make use of the comment section. We will take as many questions as we can throughout the session. Now, this next question is from Oluwatobi Oguntunde. And this question says, thank you. Oh, first of all, he's complimenting us. So he says, thank you for a beautiful session. I would like to understand the following. First of all, what makes United Capital stand out from its other competitors within the same space? That's the first question. And the second question is your target audience specifically for HNIs or any individuals regardless of their financial status? Now, we had mentioned earlier during the session that anybody, irrespective of wherever it is you are, you can actually kick off your estate planning journey with even if you think you don't have anything in quotes. But then again, I would like to channel this question to the experts here to address it. First question, what makes United Capital Trustees stand out from other competitors within the same space? And the second question is your target audience specifically HNIs, or it can also be individuals regardless of their financial status? So over to you, Nnamdi.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'm careful not to appear bragging, but I'm confident to say that United Capital is actually the best trustees in Nigeria. And
Yeah.
the aim is to go beyond Nigeria to capture Africa and even the world, because we put a deliberate touch to trusteeship in trying to provide service for our client. Our objective is the client's need. Our objectives is how to advise the client, to structure for the client something that would not fail over time. I want to give you an example of a meeting I had recently. A client, out of anger, preferred to disinherit some of his beneficiaries. And I cited the case of a billionaire that just passed, whose extended family members came up to court to try to dispute one or two things. And I said, it's better you have enough to structure in such a way that everybody would be accommodated. Somebody would say, as trustees, what's your business is his wealth and all that. But for us, the effort we put into making sure that beyond what you are saying, that we see what you are not saying, that we render advice to ensure there is no problem tomorrow. So in United Capital, when we render advice to you on trusteeship, the next question we'll ask ourselves as a team is, what are we not looking at? What problems are we not answering to in structuring a client's trust or estate plan? So really, in terms of experience, I must say that 60 years is not 6 days. It means this is 60 years of trying new things, exploring innovative ways to provide service for the client, making mistakes and learning from it. Every year I realize that I have to think less because I've made mistakes in the past and I've learned from it to be better in my decision making. So is the business of trusteeship, so is United Capital. There are mistakes we no longer make because we've gone past that, we've been there, we've done that, and we are better and we are the best. And I think the second question, you could help me refresh because is a question that touched me. I want to also provide answer to it.
Okay, so the question says, is your target audience specifically for HNIs or any individuals regardless of their financial status?
No, not at all. If you've earlier in my presentation, I said we've also designed something much simple, a private investment trust that helps you to start from wherever you are. Put funds aside. You can start with just cash asset, put funds aside, be deliberate and planning. One of the basic elements of our trust service is that in your absence, your wealth will not fall part of the unclaimed assets. CBN is well endowed with so many unclaimed assets right now. And that's why we're saying there is something for you at your level. If you now want to go comprehensive, we are well able to give you something comprehensive.
All right, thank you very much, Nnamdi. I hope this answers your questions, Oluwatobi. And not just to brag, United Capital Trustees has been around for a really long time. Like Nnamdi mentioned, 60 years, that is 6 whole decades of delivering outstanding value to our customers. Just even last year, we were actually named the Nigeria's leading trustee company by the Nigerian Exchange Group, the NGX. So, this should also give credence to the fact that United Capital Trustees is here to stay. And once you engage us to assist you with planning your estate, rest assured, sleep, close your eyes and sleep, because you know for a fact that every single thing will be well taken care of. Thank you so much. We'll be taking another question from Amos P. And this one says, can I also create trust accounts for my children aside the one that I plan to be set up in my name? Also, which is better, setting up a trust in a corporate registered company or using my personal name?
Okay, which is better, setting up a trust in your personal name? So it's really a choice in terms of the name under which you set up a trust. It's really a choice for the client. We evaluate from our conversation with the client if privacy, if confidentiality is a key ingredient of what the client wants to achieve. If so, it may not be advisable to do it in your personal name. But at the end of the day, part of the things you enjoy is to christen your trust with whatever name you want. Can I set up a trust for my children? The answer is yes. How be it, because you are already embracing the estate planning culture. I want to give you an example, although it's something that I think most people would relate to the Rockefeller dynasty. And I know there are a little here and there in Nigeria coming up where whenever any beneficiary is born, something is already set up in form of an estate plan. You know, it helps them receive certain things, have a plan. So when such a person gets to a certain age and start enjoying some things, it's no surprise. Maybe those are part of people you'll be calling trust fund babies. But men, with what I know now, I wish I was a trust fund baby. You know. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Nnamdi. This next question is from an anonymous attendee, and this one says, if assets are in another jurisdiction, say a different country, how does United Capital Trustees handle that? Are there any constraints that we might encounter if you need to plan your estate with assets that are in a different country?
Yes, so
Hold on, Nnamdi. I'd like to combine this question with another question from Jacob because it's quite similar. And this one also says, is there any legal backing to combine overseas assets and assets in Nigeria with a trust with United Capital? So you can take both of them together. Let me take it again so you get an overview. The first one says, if assets are in another jurisdiction, say a different country, how does United Capital Trustees handle it? Are there any constraints? And the second one says, this one's from Jacob, which says, is there any legal backing to combine assets overseas with assets in Nigeria using a trust with United Capital? So you can take it.
okay, so what I want to say is that nothing in our statute stops you from combining assets. However, when you're setting up a trust, ease of administration is fundamental. And for us trustees, we engage ourselves in researching more about the legal regimes of the country where the asset is based. We have, of course, United Capital prides itself in collaborating with even other firms across other countries. So we'll have friends across the globe who we're able to also work with to still provide the same value for you. So where by virtue of the legislation of that particular country, by legislation, I mean the laws applicable in those countries, it may not be smooth to administer your trust. We work with our friends over there to make sure that whatever we are setting up for you there is in line with your objectives as you've communicated to us, and to also make sure that at all times we have eyes everywhere. So where it's very easy to administer, we also go ahead, depending on the kind of asset and the circumstance of each asset.
All right. Thank you very much. This is another question from Larry Waju, and this one says, can you split your assets and set up multiple trusts with different corporate trustees? Solomon?
Okay.
Is it possible to split your assets and set it up across different corporate trustees? What would you advise?
Well, legally, it is certainly doable. Basically, you would have you would distinguish all the assets, put them in different pools, and of course assign to different trustees to manage. However, it's not, of course, always advisable for you to do so, largely because you want a single trustee having visibility over, of course, all you own. And again, the nuances of administration of each will not be lost on that single trustees to manage. So again, the question whether it's possible, yes, it is possible, but is it advisable? No. Again, don't forget, one of the benefits of the trust is to save cost. Now, if you have three, four, five trustees administering your asset, again, the cost, the attendant cost then now becomes what's the point? Like I mentioned earlier, one of the ways of ascertaining that trust is the best, it's in understanding it in comparison. And one of the comparative advantage is because it's less cheaper to do so. Now you override that advantage if you start assigning assets to 3 different, 4, 5 different trustees to manage for you. And again, just like Nnamdi mentioned earlier, United Capital Trustees, again, as one of the foremost trustees in Nigeria, we are able to handle all your different buckets of assets without needing assistance from any other trustee. I want to also say that one of the mottos, of course, that guides on how we operate is what we call the 3 E's, which is, of course, excellence, execution, and enterprise. So putting all these resources together, we're able to give you a top-notch service that gives you ease, even while you are alive, and of course, that gives you confidence to say that, yes, upon my device, I'm able to, I can rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Thank you so much, Nandi. Thank you so much, Solomon. The questions that just keep reeling in. Another question says, this one is from Shola Kotun, and it says, how does a charitable trust differ from a foundation? How does a charitable trust differ from a foundation? Nandi, would you like to take this?
So, I think it's easier to explain or to describe so that I don't go too legal, that the umbrella that enables you, if you are using a trust, to run things like foundations, different charitable objectives, is a charitable trust. So where you are getting trustees involved in the running or planning a foundation, so you're already having a charitable trust whose vehicle of execution is a foundation. I hope that helps. And I want to, at this point, also mention that if for any reason the answers we're giving to your question raises further questions for you, we are always available to book a session with you, discuss further, explain that which applies to you specifically. But let me stop at this point for this question.
All right, thank you. This next question is from Ifeanyi Ugwa, and Ifeanyi says, I am unmarried and have no children yet. Is there a way to set up the trust now and then transfer ownership when I start a family?
Well, it's a beautiful thing you are hearing this and you are thinking of setting it up. You should set up a trust. Like we say in estate planning, you review your estate plan at every milestone. Right now, you are thinking of setting up a trust. Go ahead and do it. Just like one of the brands will say, just do it. Come to us, let's set up your trust, no matter how small. Then when you get married, we do a review to incorporate so many other dynamics that your life would have, that would have been introduced to your life. When you give birth to another beneficiary, let's do another review. Let's work with you. Let's grow with you. Let's plan with you. Let's help you avoid mistakes. Thank you very much, Ifeanyi, for that question.
Thank you very much. I'm seeing lots of questions about the recording. Not to worry. Once we wrap up the session, we would definitely share the recording with you, and would also provide you with contact details in case you want for you to book a consultation. I mean, we've heard everything we've heard here on the webinar, but the next step is to actually take action. So yes, if you want to book a consultation to get started, we will definitely be sending you links to do that as well. Thank you very much, everyone. We are stuck for time. I hope we have all gotten value. I have gotten value personally, and I'm pretty sure every single one of us on this call have gotten value so far. So we're trying to wrap up now, and would like to take final words. Solomon, I would like to take final words from you. We just want to know, for people, it's one thing to hear. It's one thing to know, it's another thing to start. So for someone who is hearing all of this and they're wondering, where do I start? What's that one key piece of advice you can give to anyone who has been delaying? I mean, a lot of people have heard about, we've had several scenarios here in Nigeria. There was a case of Kobe Bryant who had, who didn't even, nobody knows when they are going to pass on. But then again, he has, I'm not sure how many kids he has, but his trust only has like 2 of his children in there. The third one wasn't added, right? That's one case. We also had the case of the Nigerian billionaire who passed on sometime last year, and there has been cases with family and every other person trying to grab a piece of the cake. So a lot of people have even heard, aside celebrities or the billionaires that we've spoken about, there are lots of cases that happen every day. I mean, you come across all of these cases in the course of your work. So we just want to know, what's that one key piece of advice you can give to someone who has been hearing all of these things and has been delaying, or somebody who has just heard for the first time and just wants to start? So we'd like to take final words from you, and then we'll take Nnamdi as well. So over to you, Solomon.
All right, thank you very much, Florence. I think most of the reasons that we hear that people are not, of course, starting their estate plan or starting a trust is largely to say that what I have is not enough. My asset pool is so limited. I still have plans to buy tomorrow. I have things to buy. I want to buy this property next year. I want to buy that property in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. And when I hear that, the quote I typically give is, I think it's Friedrich Nietzsche's, where he said, "No one just starts to fly. You must first learn to crawl, to walk, to run before you fly." And of course, using that analogy, with what you have, just start. Irrespective of how small it is or how small you even think it is, just start with it, because with what you have. Hearing alone, is not enough. Having the knowledge is not enough. You have to act on it so that at least you also set, a plan, for your life. I started the conversation with, failing, of course, failing to plan is planning to fail. And of course, I think Nnamdi Butchers it when he says that not planning also is the plan, even though it's not a plan anybody should adopt. So again, my final word is start today. Start today. We have a dedicated team ready to attend to you, immediately. And again, consultation is free. So yes, we are here and available to attend to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Solomon. And Nnamdi, any final words from you?
Yes. Thank you very much. From me, the main thing I want to bring to our attention is that this conversation, I like to call it the gospel, is not a one-off. We would always come to you with different medium to explain. We need people to understand estate planning. We need people to understand the use of trust. So it's a series that you should watch out for from our social media handles. Always tune in to confirm when our next is. We're thinking of something around the education trust specifically, since we are already having the Children's Day around the corner, to let you see how you can put plans together. But importantly, a takeaway from this conversation, I want you to know that using a trust to plan your estate is not complex. People make it look so complex. It's actually very simple. Perhaps the simplest of all of it. But what are the benefits? It helps you to secure your wealth. It gives you and your beneficiaries protection. And in case of incapacity, I so much love one of my experience where a client of mine needed to go into surgery, and I had to meet with him, and he gave me in details what he wants as an addendum in case if he doesn't make it. And of course, he made it. To my delight, he made it. But then it's for you to plan for every area of your life, including incapacitation. And we don't pray that any of us becomes incapacitated, but when you plan, you have peace of mind. So please continue to look out for our next series for you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. In a nutshell, our key takeaway from today is be intentional about planning your estate. And what better way to plan your estate than with a trust? And here at United Capital Trustees, we are available to support you through every step of the journey. So thank you so much once again, Nnamdi Okeke, Team Lead Private Trust, and Solomon Iberese, Team Lead Corporate Trust here at United Capital Trustees. Thank you for sharing your wealth of wisdom with us. And of course, our esteemed audience, thank you very much for staying with us till the end. I mean, so far in the session, we've been able to define trust, why it matters, for people of different income groups, the different misconceptions that are around the entire concept of trust, and the different kinds of trust services we offer here at United Capital. Now, just in case you miss anything during the webinar, don't worry, we'll share the recording with you shortly. And for more information about United Capital Trustees, you can simply visit our website at www.unitedcapitalplcgroup.com/trustees. Or you can even send us an email via trustservices@unitedcapitalplcgroup.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms to stay updated on all our products and services. We are available on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at United Capital PLC, and also on Twitter, former Twitter now known as X, at United Cap. Once again, we'll share the recording of this webinar with you, and we'll also include contact details for those of you who might want to reach out to take the first step in planning your estate. Now, once again, on behalf of United Capital Trustees, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate your time, and we hope you stay in touch. My name is Florence Uchendo. It has been an honor serving as your moderator for today. See you at our next webinar. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching. If you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing so that you won't miss out in all the important meeting that I might have attended or I'm going to attend in the future. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. God bless you as you do. Soar in your investments.